here's our introduction. We're going to talk about improving the execution of work. So bringing AI into an automation platform. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the platform, capabilities, market drivers. First, let's talk about the market. Three big areas on why we think this is important. It's not just removing the mundane, it's also helping on the complex, and we're seeing business model transformation. We've already seen that multiple times from vendors today. Now, we know this is true because we've studied companies around the world. We've looked at the way work is managed from the volume to the complexity, and we can apply intelligence across the entire spectrum. Also, what is the technology that's needed? It's not just RPA, although it's hyped a lot. There's microservices and containers, there's BPM, there's ODM. All this stuff really comes together. It needs to come together in a platform. So here's our vision. I think I like Nathaniel's a little bit better. I'm going to augment this a little bit on what's required for a true intelligent automation environment. So we'll go into and show some of the capabilities in our demo. One final point, all of this comes together to deliver what I believe is the future of work, bringing the humans with the robots into the process, capitalizing on the data that's executing that can now be captured with AI. Mike,
right.
Let's go.
And absolutely, if you think about it, IBM has a collection of great technologies, have been market leaders in different spaces. But we want to provide it as a unified platform, provide different types of deployment options, either containerization, on-prem or cloud, and we want to make it easy for people to build things, and that's what we wanted to focus on, personas. And the personas that we traditionally did was early on IT and developers, but one of the things that we didn't focus on was business users. How we're going to build that citizen developer, how we're going to build the tool sets to go and drive that. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to provide a platform that lets you build microservices of different actions, an application designing framework that will empower business people to build templates of solutions that can be deployed on a Navigator framework or really a portal framework. Now, when I talk about microservice reusable types of services, I'm talking about being able to build microservices of tasks, content, workflow elements. Think about the patterns that you actually have within each of these different types of paradigms. And using it, I want to provide a much more simplistic way that business people can leverage these microservices and build applications. So in this example, I'm going to have a business developer build out a rapid design. I'm going to leverage a developer to build a reusable business service and provide that to a business user in a user interface, what we call our studio product. So again, all drag and drop. One of the things that I wanted Jeff to show you is exactly how we do that, how we make that experience more unique for our business developers and our business partners to actually build things over time. So this is what I see, and this is probably a bad slide in California because we hate exhaust. It's horrible. We like close the windows. I got a 7-year-old daughter, and I don't want her to see that exhaust. But exhaust has a lot of interesting data points that we can actually use over time. What we call this is digital exhaust. It's commonly known in the web world of the footprints of activities that people do on browsers, and you always want to delete your browser over time. But there's a lot of information that actually gets collected through the audit logs of things that happen. We want to identify patterns, understand how people do work, and so forth. So I didn't know this was a build slide. This should not be a build slide, but this is how we're doing it. So we're building these emitters that actually read out of the audit logs within our systems, runs it through our Kafka engine, and basically normalizes that data to present these types of UIs. So either we're going to collect the data and information you can look at, you can visualize it, you can measure it, but additionally we want to be able to provide AI capabilities to actually understand why is the data this way, what's actually happening to the business, why are they doing certain different things. And so when Kramer was talking about infusing AI, it's doing that. I think collecting the data is interesting, but it's like understanding the data and figuring out how I apply it over time. And we have these kind of paradigms of when we look at kind of building these insights or nuggets of intelligence of what we want to go and grab. So today, out of box, we're going to provide you 6 common AI patterns that come out of box. You can start leveraging to extract information, to understand prioritization, make decisions, anticipate the next best actions over time. But as you start leveraging it over time, you're going to start figuring out how to improve your operations. And really, this is what I wanted Jeff to kind of walk through and share with us today. So Jeff?
All right, great. So I'm going to take you guys through a demo. My name is Jeff Goodhue. We're seeing the design time. I'm going to put on my designer hat. The design time of our workflow solution called Business Automation Workflow. And the use case I'm going to use here is account opening, okay? So I have a couple required case tasks in the top, a new account, obviously. I'm going to do account opening. I need a new account. I'm also going to review some documents. Secondly, I have some optional things like a checklist of options or getting a risk score if I feel that's necessary. The caseworker gets to decide that. Well, interestingly, that get risk score happens to be a structured workflow. That's something I already have somewhere else in the business. And so I can directly from our case tool bring up our structured workflow and run through what's in that particular task in the case. Here we see we're getting some client data and integration in blue. We're calculating a risk score using business rules in green. And if it is high risk, we'll go up to that middle swim lane and we'll get some existing accounts and actually do the manual analysis of the risk. Well, interestingly there, we have a robotic task in there because I'm really tired of getting my own accounts because that's just a copy-paste operation. So we'll show a little robotics in there as well as our human task there in yellow. All right, well, so interestingly, let's just talk about that green one before we get into the runtime of our overall case here. So here I have the ability now in DMN to model my decisions. I can certainly still use the larger context as well of heritage decisions we have in the portfolio, but I have a risk scoring decision that's very simple for our demo here using 2 data elements. And inside the risk score, what we've done with DMN is we've actually used the inspiration of DMN to allow us to execute it, as some others in the room I believe do as well. So I do have the ability to include rules that execute inside of my decision nodes in the diagram. So here's an example of that rule, and we'll be executing the rule in about the second row to come out with a generated risk score. Okay, well that covers everything from the design hat. So I'm going to take off the design hat. I'm going to put on my end user hat here. Now I've come into my portal, and I'm going to do a couple different things in the portal. So me as an end user, I'm going to choose to take on the CSR role first. I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to be on the phone with the customer, okay? And later on, I'll be taking on other roles like a banker or a risk analyst. First thing I'm going to do is go and open up a new account for the customer. So here we'll do Susan Sample is not going to use her real social security number because that wouldn't be a good idea. We're going to make her relatively young, opening her new account. I can do drop downs, I can do fields, formats. Obviously, everything on the screen you see here can be specific to what the user wants to see. So here we have a call center rep. Maybe they want to pull in fields. We saw that with some of the other folks. Maybe they want to generate things. There's lots of different options. I'm just showing you a very simple form for this first task. So let's go ahead and say that the deposit amount is going to be $15,000. We're going ahead and ready. We're going to add the case. Well, hey, it prompts my call center user to add some documentation because that's the first thing that they need to do. So they come to their overall case view. They see the structured information on the right. Let's go ahead and dive in. Now, interestingly, built into the solution, we have complete document management support. So that's a really key part of workflow for us at IBM. We have a full content repository, all the content actions that you would need. So let's go ahead and add a piece of content into this. Maybe this is something that was emailed to her. Again, it could also be ingested through. We talked about capture and data capture a couple times. So there's a lot of options there into our tooling. Once we've gotten that piece of content in, I can bring this up in a full virtual content editor. No plugins, no installs. Doesn't matter what the document type is, we can handle it. Made a lot of advancements in this content editor, actually. So we have the ability to do merge and splits. I can bring up multiple forms, drag pages around. Lots of different options there. If, for example, I wanted to bring this back up and do a redaction, I could do a manual redaction, or using capture technologies, I could automate that redaction based on sensitive information. So a lot of different capabilities in the content, and it's built directly into the workflow. Let's go ahead and save off the annotations, close off our viewer. Here, we're back to our case view. I still have the content here in context. I'm pretty much done with this particular item, so I'm going to go ahead and save it and close it off. So now I'm taking off my CSR hat. I'm going to put on the next one. That automatically routed a task. In this case, I didn't choose to do so as a user, as a case owner. The system did choose to do it for me. And that's a review task, reviewing the documents in the checklist. So I see that last one here in the list. That's the one that I just created. Here I can see now as a banker, a different person in the enterprise, I can see that exact same piece of content. But based on permission management, I don't have the permission to turn off the redaction. I don't have permission to change this. I'm seeing what I need to see as a user and what I should see. All right. On the left-hand side, I see some of the same structured information. I see the deposit account. Over in the middle here, I also see a lot of history, and we mentioned this quite a few times throughout today. All this digital exhaust is being tracked for me. So later on, you'll see information in chart form and in dashboard form. We'll come back to that. The checklist. Okay, so there's a couple ways that I can interact with this case task. This is a very simple one for the banker to perform. It's just going to be a checklist where I'm going to go back down here and say, okay, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that. Cool, let's go ahead and complete that checklist and I'm done. Well, maybe also I have something else I want to do, but I didn't anticipate it in the model. The case doesn't know about this thing. Well, that's called a quick task for us, right? So let's do some additional review. Let's go ahead and create that as a task in my, my to-do list here. I can open this up. I can give it a due date. Let's say that it needs to be done by Wednesday. I can attach files. I can add some descriptions. Please do this, A, B, C, D, etc. I can give the due date here, and I can also assign it to somebody. I know the perfect person, right? Rather than leaving this open, I'm going to assign it to my friend James Dunn. Let's go ahead and add them to the assignment list. Lastly, hey James, help a man out. And I'm going to add a comment in here. Now, of course, we're going to have a conversation going back and forth in this particular task. The task is here in my queue as the owner of this particular task in the case, but James will see it. They'll be able to come in and edit it. Let's say that he did, just for time's sake on the demo. I'm going to go ahead and check it off. So that's as easy as it is to create a completely ad hoc, undefined task called a quick task in the solution. All right, so I'm pretty much done here. The last thing I'm going to choose to do, this is, so again, something I'm going to choose to add to the case, is I'm going to go ahead and apply for that new account and get the risk status going. So that's that structured workflow. So doing the application in this form requires that. I'm going to go ahead and leave some of those fields blank again for our demo's sake. We don't really need to do that. Let's go ahead and add in the annual income field there. As soon as I hit the add button, that will create a new workflow task. Now, here what we've done is we've merged all these together. So now we have the ability to show tasks either in unified task lists or in separate task lists, all in the same portal. So what I'm going to do is come over to my work dashboard here. This is where maybe different users, different types of roles are coming in and doing work. Here, I see an example of that work in front of me. I could have put that in the other portal, just showing you a couple different views so you guys get a feeling for it, but all in the same portal. And this get existing accounts is the one that I'm a little bored with doing. I don't really want to do it myself, right? So let's pull this down and move it across here over to the right-hand side of the screen. I'm going to show you guys a couple of RPA types, but the one I know I have time to show you today is an attended bot. So essentially, rather than have that happen in the background and you guys not see it at all, I'd like me to launch it. So me as a user, I can choose to say, robot, help me out, okay? So what I'm going to do is, as soon as I launch this robot, it'll happen real quick. As you guys are well aware of, robots are really quick, right? What it will do is on the right-hand side, it'll grab the task called Get Existing Accounts. It'll accept it and claim it. And then UI will pop up over on the left. It's kind of a heritage UI that I mocked up. It will do some searching based on history in the case. It'll find information that it wants. It'll gather it back out of the UI using robotic UI integration from Automation Anywhere in our case. And then it will send it back over into the process in the case so that it can be used later on. Okay? So let's go ahead and double click here. I'm going to again go ahead and launch this robot. What it will do is get to a certain point, claim the task on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, my little heritage UI is opened up. It's logging in with my credential from my credential store, searching, gathering the data, copying it, and sending it back over. So now the robot's all done. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that guy. It doesn't need to do any more work. It was waiting for more tasks, possibly for me. And now I see my last task here is called Manually Analyze Risk. So this is the last one that's been assigned to me. Let's go ahead and open this one up. And this is a classic, process task for a human to do. So here I'm going to give a lot of information in structured form, instructions. Here you see the same information about Susan's sample that we passed in from the case view into this particular structured process. I see an action field. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. That's the end result of what I want to do. Before that, I need to do some analysis. I need to understand what I want to get done as a user. So I can come down here and look at some more information in tabular form. Here's some applications that came from the REST calls we made in the process. Here is some information that came from that UI from the robot. Cool, well, I got that, but maybe I need some help. So let me show you 3 ways that artificial intelligence can help me. So first, we have an integrated chatbot functionality. This uses IBM Watson Assistant. Here, what I can ask, maybe some questions. So let's say, what products does the client have now? It will do a search. It'll figure out first, classify my question. What is it? What's my intent? It'll go and do a search into the document repository, pull them back, and it looks like it has product repository, and it looks like it has 3 different products: checking, savings, business reward, checking. Okay, that's helpful. It gives me some context. Well, what documents do we have for this client? Hopefully my misspelling will still work. I think it does. Good. So it's figured out that it wants historical documents. Now we went to the document repository, pulled them out, and gave me these. Now I could also have it pull up documents specifically, do previews. But this is a way that artificial intelligence can help me as a user walking through and understanding the documents and understanding the case in a natural language form. So that's one way. Okay, good. Well, a second way artificial intelligence can help me is related to that digital exhaust idea that we were discussing. So in here, I've actually embedded a dashboard directly into the user UI. I could put this over on the left as a separate dashboard for managers and other folks that might want to manage it that way. But here, if I scroll down through, I have a map, for example, to help me understand risk across my portfolio. I have values, from opening account values and case hour values, so I can understand better. And maybe this particular customer's in Florida, for example. I do see that's a hotspot, so I might click on Florida, and I'll see the graphs have all changed. This information, this digital exhaust, is helping me make a risk analysis decision. It's pulling together information from the process and from other areas of my business into one dashboard. So again, this is a way that artificial intelligence can start to help me, but it's not really recommending anything to me yet, right? That's just giving me the information that's easier and more accessible to do my job. Well, the last step would be taking that information, that digital exhaust in our data lake, which is our new business insights automation intelligence, and we're going to take that and we're going to actually run machine learning models on it. So that was that step I skipped up here. So now I'm back up to my decision area. I'm ready to make my decision. Interestingly, Watson has used that machine learning model to make a decision and recommendation for me and say, hey, yeah, I think generally, based on history, the risk score should be somewhere between 480 and 520 for this customer, not the 400 that our rules returned. That maybe is something we need to update, right? So let's go ahead and make this 485 as a human. I'm deciding that. The recommendation could be really anything. Again, as we've been discussing a little bit today, the features are specified by you. We're looking into, and I know Michael covered this briefly, ways that we can help generate models, get you guys better features and improvements there. That's one of the latest releases that we're coming out with. So here's an example of something that we can do today using a machine learning model. All right, so last I'm going to go ahead and submit this off. That closes that particular task out. Now let's come back over to our case view. We can see here we have a new task. Let's go ahead and load that up as our banker. So they've done the risk analysis. They've done the structured workflow. Let's come back. Here's the risk score at 485 there in the middle. So that came from that structured workflow as an output. I'm going to go ahead and, as the case worker, I'm going to go ahead and decide that, yeah, this guy should be approved. Let's go ahead and mark that off. I like Susan's sample for her account. Let's go ahead and complete that task. That closes everything out. And then as a case owner, if I'd like to come back in and try to find Susan's, I bet you I have at least a couple in this particular content store. So let's choose the latest one here. We'll go ahead and load up the history of the case. Everything's stored over time as a record as necessary by retention policy. Documents on the left, structured information on the right. And we can see the phases we've gone through at the top, from initiation to review, application and risk scoring, and completing the account request. So that's a case management end-to-end. Hopefully I have just a little bit of time still to take you through, a couple minutes. That's perfect, all right? So let's go ahead and take you through into the new thing that Michael had talked about called Business Automation Studio. So here now I'm in putting on my no-code hat, right, low-code hat, and I'm in an environment where I want to make applications. So maybe that very first application, all the way at the beginning with the CSR, I want to put it on a mobile device. I want to create a very simple app to launch that case or launch that process. Maybe that's my use case here. I don't want to do the entire workflow, but I just want to create an application. So let's go ahead and look at how we can do that in our latest Business Automation Studio. Here I have an application called New Account Opening. Let's go ahead and open up that. And remember, I'm going to remind you again, this is not a process. In this particular instance, this is not a process, it's an application. Okay? So it's a very different paradigm. Here I've got my standard template set up. I got the same fields. This is all in a data object. So if I come over here to my variables, I do see a customer data object. Great. So that's what I'm looking at. Let's come back to my starting page. I see the same fields, my deposit amount, and my review button. Okay, so what does this actually look like when I run it? That's the design environment. But as with everything inside of our DBA portfolio, we really like to take that playback methodology where I can always run it immediately. So all I did have to do is hit the play button to see this thing run as an application in the UI. All right, so great. I see the interface. By the way, and I'll show you this in a minute, I can, of course, use single column format as I get smaller on the mobile device. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave all those blank just for time's sake. Let's go ahead and put in a deposit amount. Click on the review button. I have a read-only form on my second page of my app. I have the 2000 patched in. I'm okay, I'm good, I'm going to complete, and that'll reset the app back to the beginning. So very simple two-page app at this moment. Okay, well, let's add some interesting intelligence and integration. So let's take an action, more than just doing the input of the data and saying, I'm done, I'm complete, store it somewhere. Let's actually do something with it. So if I come to my second page called review and I come down to this complete tab down here, let's say open account and close. Or actually, let's just say open account. That sounds good. So I changed my label, but I can do a lot more in this low-code editor than just changing labels. So here's actually the definition of this button right now. It says end application. That's all it does. It just ends the application and resets it to the beginning if I'm in the test environment. I want to call an action. This action is something that my developers have created, maybe that process in case we just saw. Okay, so it shows up here in the list as onboard new account. This came from the toolkits that I have available to me as a low-code app builder. Here it looked at my data variables we saw a second ago, my customer and my deposit amount. It auto-mapped them. That wasn't me doing this ahead of time for the demo. It literally goes and looks and takes its best guess based on the name and the type as to what I would do. So I mapped in my two data elements to send to the process. Okay, great. There's no output from that particular process call. I'm not expecting anything back. It's just going to launch the process, start it off. And then lastly, I want to show you guys another idea here. So rather than end the application, let's create a brand new page, again, in front of you. I haven't created anything ahead of time here. So let's do the success page. Great. All right, so now I'm going to click on the OK button. I've changed this button live in front of you. I've created a brand new page. I'm going to use the stencil. So this is the only thing that I did ahead of time. It's called a stencil. It's a template. So all that did, by the way, is give me the title bar and the content. That's it. Very simple to do. I'm going to add a couple pieces of content here. So this is as easy as it is to create a new UI. I'm going to put just the word success with a bunch of exclamation points. I mean, I can type well. I could map it into a new data element on the fly. All I would need to do to create that data element is just type the name there. Very easy. I'm not going to do that for this particular one, but data type mapping is very easy as well. Let's go ahead and move this little OK button up here. And I'm not really in love with OK. Let's put close. And I'm not really in love with the color, so let's go ahead and change that to green, for example. All right, good. I've done a little bit of work. I've added an action to my app that actually launches a process, makes an API call automatically, and that API call is not something I have to go and code in REST. It's automatic for me. It's built in. And I've also created a brand new page with a label on it and a button on it. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and fill this out. Click on the review button. This all looks good. Click on the new open account button. Great, it launched it and it said success. Perfect, right? So that's as easy as it is to do low-code app development in the brand new Business Automation Studio environment. I think that's it. I'm slightly over time, but let's get some questions.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys. Questions, anybody?
Should we just drop the mic because it was so great and you just want beers, or what should we do? So all the stuff that we talked about is what you get with DBA. We're not asking you to pay for any more. We're moving away from buying products of automation, but we're giving you the platform, and then you're going to pay based on metering, right? So now you have what we just talked about, all this content management tool, all capable. You don't have to buy it separately. You get the whole workflow platform. You don't have to pay it separately. You get capture tools and content tools. I mean, what we want to do is we want to make it simple for the customers to use, because people are not buying piece of parts. They're not buying BPM anymore. They're not buying rules anymore. They're buying automation, and that's what we want to do. We want to give you automation and just pay for what you use. Make it very simple.
Yeah, it's been a journey for us to get to this point. But as Jeff mentioned also, the need to collect the data in the right format representing the end-to-end operations requires more technology than, and it doesn't always necessarily have to come from one vendor, but we're finding that clients are purchasing and putting it together, or sometimes they want everything that we offer. So we put the platform together. Now we have the ability to collect the data, and what we announced in February at San Francisco was a preview of business automation with Watson, and that's what's coming this fall. And so now you have the data lake, and we're going to be applying the AI to that.
Yep.
So that's the roadmap.
Other questions?
Just enthralled.
Yeah,
with
everyone
this
here
amazing-
either is
Thirsty.
Amazing
That's what
or
they are.
thirsty.
Wow,
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
excited
Thirsty.
about the power. Wow. Well, good. I mean,
I'll be around all week. I think, Michael, you're staying a
we're
bit,
around
right?
here. We want to spend some time, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of things. Unfortunately, Kramer and I, we didn't practice at night doing it together, so we probably missed a couple things. But everything that you need to think about, again, we're embracing microservices huge. Empower low code for building UI experiences. Everything is available as a containerized architecture that you can deploy in multiple different environments, and it's all powered by AI, and it's not just AI calling it, it's actually going to be embedded into the tools so that you can leverage all the AI capabilities to actually think about what's the next best task, what's the next resources, start looking at ways to find new automation opportunities within your business. All right? With that, Nathaniel, back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.